Hello, good afternoon, and the warmest of welcomes to this afternoon's iOB business webinar. It's a pleasure to have you on here. My name is Ben, and I am the resident business coach here at iOB Business. Okay, now on today's iOB business webinar, we're going to be talking about something very, very important. Okay, we're going to be talking about how you might be holding yourself back without even realizing it. Okay, so if this is your first time joining us on one of our iOB business webinars, please allow me to run you through briefly how it's going to work. Okay, so once again, my name is Ben, and I'm going to take you through a brief introduction just to get everybody comfortable and everybody sorted, and then we're going to dive on to today's session. Okay, now the session always runs for around about 15 to 20 minutes or so. Now, what's important to note is that you're more than welcome to ask any questions throughout today's session, and we're going to give you a brief moment to do this. Okay, so we're going to cover three topics as we always do. And in between each of the three topics, you can go ahead and ask any questions in the gray Q&A box at the bottom of the screen there. And that should come through to me. And then I can answer those for you during the Q&A session at the end of the webinar today. Okay, so for those of you joining us again, a very warm welcome. I can see that we've got a few familiar faces joining us, which is wonderful. Always nice to see. So thank you so much. And we will, without further ado, give ourselves another minute or so and we will get kicked off. Okay, so if you do have any questions for me, please feel free to ask even before we kick off the webinar. That's absolutely fine. Okay, if you've joined us on one of these sessions before, you'll know exactly how they work and you don't need to hear my explanation again. Okay, so my apologies if you've already heard me say this before, but for those of you that are new coming on, it's very important that we get this shared with you. Okay, so next step, let's get the webinar up on screen now. Okay, so you should be able to see the webinar, but you should no longer be able to see my face. Lucky for you. All right, so we are now getting ready to just about kick off. All right, so you should be able to see the webinar up on screen, but you shouldn't be able to see my face anymore so that we can focus on the presentation. You should still be able to hear my voice though, so that I can talk you through today's session. Okay, now if you could just do me one big favor before we get kicked off for today, just let me know if you can hear my voice okay, and if you can see the presentation up on your screen there okay. Once I get that confirmation, I will get kicked off for today. Okay. Fabulous. All righty, cool. Looks like we are good to go then. So today's session, how you might be holding yourself back without even realizing it. Okay. Now, right before we get kicked off, I want to tell you a little bit about who I am, just so you know who's talking to you. My name is Ben. I'm a professional business coach, and I'm the resident business coach here at iOB Business. Okay, I specialize in working with small businesses, helping them to achieve stability and growth. This is my love. This is my passion. This is what I get to do every day. And you might see me, might recognize me, sorry, from that picture there up on the screen. So that is who is talking you through today's session. Okay, now bringing us on to the three discussion points we're going to be talking about today. Number one, we're going to cover the inability to make decisions, how this can cripple you. Okay, number two, giving yourself the easy way out. Now, we're all guilty of this. I know I am. I know that I've worked with many, many people in the past who have also been guilty of this, and this is something that we want to avoid. Finally, not having a long-term vision in mind. Okay, so these are the three things that we're going to be talking about today. Once again, if you do need to ask any questions, please be my guest. You can ask them down in the Q&A box at the bottom there, and I will get to them at the end of today's webinar during the Q&A session. Okay, so without further ado, let's get kicked off with topic number one, inability to make decisions. Okay, now the first point that we've got to cover here, deliberating over something for so long that you convince yourself it's not worth doing or forget about it completely. Okay, so we're going to talk about some things today that are going to sound somewhat familiar. Okay, now this is a good thing. I want you to recognize these items. I want you to become familiar with them because it's something that we're going to continue to cover throughout the rest of today's session. Now, today's webinar is all about how you may be holding yourself back without realizing. Okay, many of these things happen subconsciously. So my goal today is to bring these to the surface, bring these issues to light so that you can begin to consciously recognize them, especially if it's something that you're doing with yourself. Okay, so deliberating over something for so long that you convince yourself it's not worth doing or forget about it completely. Does this sound familiar to you? Okay, maybe we will, maybe we won't. Okay, now what can happen in this scenario is that you spend so long deciding on what decision you want to make that you actually decide it's not worth doing at all. Okay, when you deliberate over something for that long, you eventually just come to the conclusion, you know what, this is exhausting. I'm tired. I don't want to do it anymore. And pretty quickly, you begin to feel yourself deflate. Okay. Now, here's when it comes to inability to make decisions. Here's the thing, right? If you spend so long trying to make the decision, there's a very, very strong chance that ultimately you will arrive with no decision at all. Okay. Now, this can manifest in many different ways, as it were. Okay. One of the two primaries is that you'll just decide it's not worth doing. You think, if it's this hard for me to make a decision, I'm just not going to bother with it. Okay. Number two is that it's been on your to-do list for so long, or it's been in your mind for so long, that you actually decide and you think to yourself, nah, it's just not worth it. Okay. Now, that is primary. Secondarily, you might just forget about it altogether. Okay. And that's not something we want to happen. It's not something you want to do. So really the key point here, okay, we've explained the problem, deliberating over something for so long that you can convince yourself it's not worth doing, or just forget about it. Really what we want to make sure that we cover here is that we don't deliberate over decisions for too long. Okay. Now, making snap and informed decisions. Okay. This is the important thing that we have to cover with you here. Snap decision is not the same as making a decision without thinking. Okay, a snap decision is an informed decision. All right, so we need to make sure that we understand the correlation between the two. A snap decision can be a careless decision, or it can be an informed decision. Now, what you've got to do is become great with utilizing specifically what this means. Okay, making snap decisions and informed decisions is one of the most effective tools used by those who excel in business. Okay, now if you would like to be a person, a professional that excels in business, excels in their digital agency, okay, you need to become familiar and skilled with making snap informed decisions. Okay, now what does snap decision mean? It means essentially coming to a conclusion about what you want to do fairly quickly. You're not hanging around, you're not deliberating over it for too long, you're not going to forget about it, and you're not going to decide that it's not worth doing because you know what, it wasn't that hard for you to make the decision. Now, where does the informed part kick in? Okay, informed decision means that you have data to use. Okay, you have been informed with data, with information, allowing you to make your decision. Now, this can come from experience, this can come from education, this can come from external professional resources. Okay, educated resources. Okay, credible resources. So informed decision can mean many different things, and I know that you'll know that already, so we're not going to cover too much about that. Okay, but making snap and informed decisions is one of the most effective tools used by those who excel in business. Why? Because they can keep moving through their day quickly. Now, here's an interesting kind of side note, is that each day when you wake up, you imagine your mental energy like a battery, and slowly throughout the day, it dissipates. Okay, now, as it's dissipating, it depends what you choose to spend that energy on. Okay, if you spend too long deliberating over a major decision, okay, or a minor decision, you could end up using 10% of that battery, let's say, okay? When in actual fact, maybe the decision isn't that major, and maybe it only needs to use about 1% of the battery, but you've spent that long, you've given it that much brain power, you've given it that much overthinking, that it's burned up a lot more of the battery than it should have. And what does this do? It leaves the battery less charged, less full, less capable than it was before. So now the rest of your day, the rest of your decisions are going to be either more difficult, you're going to begin to feel tired, sluggish, essentially overworked. Okay. Now, this is such a wonderful example to use because it's something that I learned a little while ago in business, and it actually manifests in many different ways. And I'm going to bore you with it for too long, but theoretically, if we wake up with this finite amount of energy each day, okay, mental energy, we need to be very, very conscious of what we're spending this energy on. Now, there are well-known entrepreneurs, you might have read an article where it said Mark Zuckerberg, for example, has decided that each day he's going to wear, if you don't know who Mark Zuckerberg is, he's a founder of Facebook and now Meta, I believe, is what it's called. Now, what happens here, and I believe Jeff Bezos may look at a similar model. Now, of course, you've got to take everything you read with a pinch of salt, but the concept here is very cool, okay? They wear the same clothes each day. Why? Not because they're lazy, because it's one less decision for them to make each day. Now, this being the principle, they can go and spend that crucial mental energy on other things. They can choose what to do with their morning. They can choose how to run a meeting. They can choose any kind of crucial decision. If it's an advertising campaign, they can put their thought and brain power into this as opposed to thinking about what clothes they're going to wear that day. Okay, it's one small decision, but it's something that is absolutely not necessary to overthink. Okay, so this is why making snap and informed decisions can be one of the most effective tools used by those who excel in business. Now, making decisions isn't always as easy as 1, 2, 3, and that's why entrepreneurs use decision-making methodology techniques. Okay, now every single entrepreneur, every single professional, every single decision maker is going to have a different methodology to whatever decision it is. Okay, and how they like to make decisions. Now, just to give you a couple of examples. Okay, some professionals, some entrepreneurs, they choose to surround themselves with other experts. Okay, so if they're struggling, let's say they're the owner of a digital agency, they've got a head of operations, they've got a head of finance, they've got a head of sales, they've got a head of marketing. Okay, now together collectively, they are a power of 5. Okay, a sort of power unit, if you like, of 5 professional, intelligent individuals. Now, if the CEO, owner, leader, whatever you want to call them, is having trouble making a decision, their methodology, their technique can be to go and confer with either whoever is most relevant in their circle or all of them. So essentially they call a board meeting. They say, look, I'm having trouble making this decision. I'd like your opinions and I want to make my own informed decision after I've heard from you. Okay. Now in this scenario, 5 brains may be better than 1. Okay. That's just an example. Now, another technique that people like to use is they can make pros and cons lists. Okay, this one's a bit more simple. You probably do this for your personal decisions. Pros on the left, and they say essentially, this is all the good things that would happen if I made that decision. And the cons list on the right, this is all the bad things that would happen if I made that decision. Now, those are just 2 examples. There's many, many ways in which you can bring these decision-making techniques forward. But what is more important is that you establish a decision-making technique for yourself, whether it's, okay, let's just say step 1, I come up with what I believe to be the right answer. Step 2, I go and double check this with somebody I trust, head of operations, for example, and I wait for their feedback. Do they agree with me? Do they not agree with me? If they do, great, we go ahead. If they don't, maybe we put it forward to the head of sales, okay, wherever is most relevant to put it forward to. Now, the methodology here is going to be different dependent on the individual, dependent on the entity, the business, the corporation, whoever's making the decision. Now, it's different because every single scenario is different. Every business structure is different. So in order to make a correct, informed decision based on a personal technique, it needs to be personal to you. Okay. Now, this is why we can conquer the decision isn't as easy as 1, 2, 3, because it isn't, but we can try our best to make it as easy as 1, 2, 3 by following the same decision-making process every time. Okay. Now, many have their little tricks, their strategies, their techniques to overcome this. You need to figure out what yours is. Okay, so become a better decision maker and you will see your mental state improve. Okay, most of the time, any decision is better than no decision. Okay, so you'll have heard this phrase indecision before. Okay, now what this means is essentially somebody who is too scared to make a decision left or right, so they just decide to sit in the middle and just keep trucking along, hoping that nothing really comes. And if they ignore it for long enough, that the problem or whatever it is that's come across their desk will just eventually go away. Okay. Now, the reason I'm saying if you become a better decision maker, you will see your mental state improve is because you will be less stressed, you will be more confident. Okay, now confidence is key when running a business. And if you're confident in your ability to make decisions, you're going to be happy, you're going to feel strong, you're going to feel confident. Okay, so most of the time, any decision is better than no decision. Now, I put most of the time very deliberately because it's not always the case. All right, so that brings us to the end of topic number 1. I'll see you very briefly for topic number 2. Okay, perfect. So hopefully you've had a chance now to jot down any questions. Thank you so much. I'll get to that one at the end. And indeed, jot down any notes that you might have wanted to take on topic number 1 as well. Okay, so moving on now to topic number 2, giving yourself the easy way out. Okay, now, there's always a reason not to do something. Okay, now the topic of this webinar is how you may be holding yourself back without realizing it. Maybe you are realizing it. And we're just bringing some truths forward here, okay? Some conversation points for you to have with your inner self, maybe later on today, maybe right now. Okay, but there's always a reason not to do something. Now, whatever that reason may be, is completely personal. Okay, now what we're talking about here is how you could be holding yourself back. And in topic number 2, we're going to talk about how that can include giving yourself the easy way out. Okay. Now, there's always a reason not to do something. correct? Right? You've heard this phrase before, undoubtedly. And it's something, if you really think about it, you've probably heard in your own day-to-day life as well. Okay. There's always a reason not to do something. You've probably felt this firsthand. Okay. Start a new business, for example. Oh, the market's not right at the moment. Oh, I don't have enough savings. Oh, my job's too stable. Oh no, what about the family? What about the roof over the head? What about all the leisure activities that we can do? Oh, do you know what? I'm just too stressed at the moment. I'm too tired. Okay. Now, whether these reasons are legitimate or not is not for me to decide. That's for you to decide. All I'm saying is that you have to take into consideration that there's a good chance you've given yourself an easy way out before. Okay. Join the gym. Why not? It's too expensive. That's a way to give yourself an easy way out. Okay, fair enough. What if you cut down on other things? Nope, too expensive. Okay. Another reason not to join the gym. Oh, it's too far away. It's 2 miles away. I don't drive. Okay. You can buy a bike. Okay. So here's the solutions that I'm talking about with you. Okay. I don't want to run on and on and on about reasons to not do something. What I want to focus on is the seemingly large reasons as to why you can't do something are often not as big as you think. Okay. Now let's just take one as an example. Okay. I'm too tired to start a business. I'm too tired to start training for a marathon. I'm too tired to think about anything else right now other than what I'm doing. Okay. Now, the piece of information that I can give you is that if you don't decide to change something in your life to allow you to maybe not be so tired, you're going to stay exactly where you are. Okay. Now, not to bring this into too deep of a context, but once you get stuck in something, once you get stuck in a repetitive cycle, it can become very, very difficult to break said repetitive cycle. Now, interestingly, most of the time, the reasons we give ourselves the easy way out is because actually our routine is safe, it is comfortable, it is what we're used to, so we want to keep doing that. Now, once upon a time, your routine was not your routine. Let me share this with you. You, at some point in time, had to form a new habit, form a new idea, form a new concept, take a new risk in order to form what you now believe to be your routine. Now, potentially the business that you own now, at one point in time, that was a risk, that was a decision. Now it's your routine. Now you can think of anything different. When you took a new job, that was a risk. You moved away from your old job. Maybe you didn't have a job before. Maybe you decided to start working. Okay. That was a risk. You didn't know how that was going to affect your life, but now here you are. Now you believe that that's your routine. Until you break your routine, it will always be the same. Okay. Now let's run through some reasons that people give themselves not to do something. It's not the right time. Okay. This is probably the most common, hence why it's at the top of the list. Start a business, join the gym, start running, personal things, personal items, go on holiday, do something fun. Okay. It's not the right time. Now, what does that phrase even mean? Okay. It's not the right time. Is there ever a right time? What circumstances would have to be different for this decision to be easier? Because I can guarantee you, if you so wish, you will always find the reason not to do something. Let's say that you were looking to purchase a new property, for example. You had the deposit saved, you got all the moving costs saved, but you say, oh, now's not the right time because the property market's inflated by 1% where it was last year. Maybe next year it'll be inflated by 2%. Maybe now is the right time. Okay. It's the way of thinking that you need to be aware of. I have too much on. Another popular reason not to do something. Too busy, too tired, I'm running left and right. I have too many other things on my plate. Okay, well, where's the priority? Is whatever you're thinking about doing more important than whatever it is that's currently taking up your time? Okay, if you have too much on and every night you decide to go to the pub after work, okay, if that's what you enjoy doing, no judgment. But if that time could be otherwise spent on building a business, for example, are you then saying to yourself that you don't have any time, you've got too much on? No, I need to see my friends because my friends would fall out with me if I didn't go and start a business. If I didn't go to the pub and I instead chose to spend my time focusing on building a business. Okay. Well, then one would question about your social circle. Okay. Now, these are things that I could talk for hours and hours and hours about. But what I want you to be aware of is how you think, how you're giving yourself the easy way out. Okay. So it's not the right time. I have too much on. All right. Just because they did it doesn't mean it's for me. Now, this is one of the biggest ones that I hear, not quite the most popular, but very much up there. Just because they did it doesn't mean it's for me. Okay. So you might have seen a friend, a family member, somebody you admire, they've done something. Okay. Maybe they bought a nice car. Maybe they started a cool business. Maybe they went on a specific holiday. Maybe they achieved something project wise. Okay. Maybe they built something. But just because they did it doesn't mean it's for me. Okay. Now, whilst I understand that theory, you are your own person. Okay. Using it as a reason not to do something is something that will inevitably hold you down, hold yourself down, and it will confuse you. Okay. It will confuse you because you'll begin to believe that things that other people are doing, they're just not possible for you. It's so easy to say, oh, well, they drive a nice car because that was what life held for them. They were just born to be rich. They were born to be powerful. They were born to be successful, or whatever you define that as. Okay. Just because they did something like that doesn't mean I should. Okay. I completely agree with that theory. But in the same hand, we can't point the finger and say, oh, well, the only reason they drive a Ferrari is because life just, gave it to them. They took off with their business at the right time, and it's just worked out really nicely for them. But that's not for me. I wasn't put on this planet to do that. These are what's called self-defeating tendencies. Okay. You're telling yourself that it isn't for you. You're telling yourself that you can't do it. Nobody else is doing that, but you are telling yourself that you can't do it. Okay. They were in the right place at the right time. I love this one. I love it because the opportunities that come across your front door, your desk, whatever you want to call it, are often in the right place and the right time for you as well. You just don't take them because you can't see them. Now, most of the people who were in the right place at the right time didn't know that they were in the right place at the right time. Okay. They decided to take a risk. They took an idea and they made it into reality. Nobody told them this is the right place and the right time, and you're going to make all this money and you're going to run a very successful business if you do this right now. So instead of thinking other people were in the right place at the right time, think about where you are right now and what your opportunities ahead of you are right now. Okay. It's so easy to say, oh, well, if, Bitcoin, for example, 11 years ago, look what it's worth today. Okay. We say, oh, well, those people are in the right place at the right time. They got lucky. They didn't get lucky. They took a risk. Okay. They took a calculated risk and it paid off. Now, they could have done what most of us did and not invest, hold on to our money, keep it safe. But those who took the risk, look at where they are now. Okay. You could say the same about the internet. You could say, excuse me, you could say the same about many things. Okay. Right place, right time. What if I start and I realize I don't like it? Okay, well, what's the worst case scenario? What's the absolute worst thing that's going to happen to you? You don't like it. Keep your liability low, keep your risk low, and you can pull out of it fairly easily. Okay. These easy way outs are what 99% of people with potential use to remain average. Okay. Now, this is something that is so important. You can probably hear the passion in my voice when I'm explaining this to you, because the easy way out are what 99% of people with potential use to remain average. Now, some of the biggest ones here are that life just isn't for me. I was born to just go and get a secure job and live in a normal average household and just keep myself ticking over until I retire. Okay. Now, it's a real shame, but there's some people that I've met in a personal scenario where they've been raised to never dream. They've been raised to be realistic. They've been raised to believe that what they have, they're so fortunate to have it that they should never drive for anything more. Now, a wonderful mentor of mine told me previously that you shouldn't compare yourself to anyone else, only to who you were yesterday. Because many of us in privileged positions feel like, well, I'm selfish to dream bigger than I currently have. I would feel guilty if I tried to get more because I already have such a wonderful life. Say that you're a business owner and you're a homeowner, and you have a family and all these wonderful things to be grateful for. Now, something important that I'd like to highlight for you here is that striving for more does not mean that you are ungrateful. Striving for more means that you desire more things for a certain purpose. Okay, maybe you desire more space, as in a bigger home for your family. Maybe you desire a stronger business so that you can help more members of the community. Okay, you should only compare yourself with who you were yesterday, never with somebody else. Okay, now your position is unique to you, your life position. So I'm going to give you a moment now to jot down any notes and indeed ask away with any questions that you have on topic number 2. And I'll join you once again very shortly for topic number 3. Okay, perfect. So hopefully you've had a chance now to do that. And we'll move on to topic number 3 on today's session. Not having a long-term vision in mind, how you might be holding yourself back without realizing it. Okay, you will be less inclined to work hard if you don't have a reason. Now, how true is this? Okay, now I know that many of us can become demotivated, become unsettled in our day-to-day because ultimately we forget what the bigger picture is. We forget why we're doing it apart from for the paycheck, which even sometimes we forget. Now, this is particularly common for many of those who work a job that they don't particularly like. Okay, you'll be less inclined to work hard if you don't enjoy it, if you are having problems, but additionally, if you don't have a reason. Okay. You don't have a reason to be earning that money. You don't really feel any great sense of achievement in your work. You don't feel like you're particularly helping anyone other than yourself in a financial sense, albeit not so great. Okay. So, salary aside, earnings, finances aside, you need to have a reason. Okay. You need to have a vision as to why you're getting up to do what you want to do. Like I said, do you want more space for your family? Do you want a family to begin with? Do you want to be able to provide long term? Do you want to be the primary caregiver? Do you want to be the primary earner? Okay. What is it that you want out of life? Now, specifically, my ambition is very family oriented. So that's why I focus on this. But many have other desirables, other ambitions. They want to purchase a specific car. It's exciting. They want to purchase a specific house. They want to move to a specific country. What do you need to do all of this? Money. Okay. Now, you need to understand what your reasoning is, what your vision is. Okay. Maybe you want to help others. Maybe you want something for yourself. There's absolutely no judgment in any of that. Whatever your personal vision is, your personal vision is there. And it's important because it drives you. You need to have a long-term vision in mind. Where do you see yourself? Where do you see your company? Where do you see your business? Where do you see your professional career headed? Okay. You need to be aware of all of these things and what they're going to mean for you in the long term. You'll be a lot less inclined to work hard or work, period, if you don't have a reason. Okay. Everybody has a different compelling reason to be doing what they're doing. You've got to find yours. Okay. Are you building something that will benefit others? Are you building something that will benefit yourself and your family? Okay. Are you working towards a specific goal? Do you want to move into an office from a home office? Do you want to be able to buy a specific car? Do you want to be able to go on the trip of a lifetime? Do you want to be able to treat somebody that you love? Okay. What is the desire? What's the ambition? Okay. You've got to be aware of what it is that you're working towards, because if you don't, you're going to find the day to day a lot more mundane. Okay. And you don't want this to happen. A lack of vision equals a lack of motivation equals no reason to get out of bed. Okay. If you don't see yourself driving towards a bigger picture, if you don't see yourself driving towards something new, then that is something that is going to ultimately hamper you, whether you realize it or not. Okay. This is how you could be holding yourself back, because you're not really working towards anything. Before you know it, days go by, months go by, years go by, where you haven't made any progress and you simply stayed in the same position. Why? Because you didn't have any ambition. Okay. Now, this is an awful shame and something that I want to do my best to make sure that you don't do. So whatever you're working towards must be more appealing than your comfort zone. Okay. Now, this is a huge one, maybe seemingly obvious. You'd be surprised, not so obvious sometimes. Okay. But whatever it is that you're working towards, it's got to be more appealing than your comfort zone. Why? Because on those days where you just feel like doing nothing and retreating to your comfort zone, whether that's watching Netflix, whether it's going back to bed, whether it's reading a book, well, whatever it is, if it's not business or work associated, you could refer to it as being in your comfort zone. Okay. Going out for a specific meal. If you're doing anything other than working when you should be working, you've got to ask yourself, is the vision that I'm working towards more appealing than my comfort zone? Okay. If you want to buy a big house one day, or you want to buy a specific property one day, you want to be driving a Ferrari in 3 years. Is that more appealing to you than stopping work and going and watching Netflix right now? Okay. I can tell you firsthand, for me, it is. Okay. So you've got to make sure that you understand what these ambitions are. Now, that brings us to the end of topic number 3. Okay. Now, that really finished on a nice motivational point. So let's have a real think now, just before we go into the recap about how we might be holding ourselves back without realizing it. Okay. So, recap from today. Inability to make sharp decisions could harm your business. Okay. Could harm you personally. You want to keep a strong, confident mental state of mind. In order to do this, you've got to be a snappy and informed decision maker. Number 2, there's always a reason not to do something. Okay. Bear this in mind the next time you think about not doing something that you've always wanted to do. There's always a reason not to do it. Number 3, make sure that you have your own compelling reason. Put them all together. You've got a vision, so you know why you're getting out of bed every day that's more appealing than your comfort zone. You've got an awareness that there is never a right time to do something. And number 3, you're a sharp decision maker, keeping a strong, confident state of mind. Okay. So, as always, a massive thank you for taking the time to attend today's session. It's been an absolute pleasure presenting to you. If you would like to talk to a member of our team, you're more than welcome to head over to iob-business.com/talk-to-us. On there, you can book a call at a time that suits you with us. Okay, so I'm going to leave that link up on screen there for you. And I'm just going to go ahead and grab the questions that I've got from you for today. Okay, excuse me. So question number one, thank you ever so much for sending these in. Question number one, what if I make the wrong decision? Okay, it's an awesome question, right? So we're going back to the decision-making process here. Essentially, remember what we said was any decision is better than no decision. Okay, so first things first, award yourself for coming to a decision in the first place. Okay, what you can do after that is establish what went wrong, so the next time you can do better with that decision-making process. Now, you remember how we talked about technique and strategy? Okay, most of the time, making a decision is better than making no decision at all. Okay, as long as it's not catastrophic. Okay, so what you can do if you have made a wrong decision or you've made an incorrect call, hopefully it hasn't had any severe impact. Okay, and you can do this by keeping liability and risk low. But you can now review this, figure out what went wrong, take your learnings, put it into the next decision that you need to make, and make sure that you don't make the same mistake again. Okay, fantastic question. I hope that answers it. Thank you ever so much for asking. Next question. How do I stop giving myself the easy way out? All right, I love this question. Okay, so what you need to do here is question if your excuses are valid or whether they're simply fears. Okay, there is a genuine difference between concern and simple excuses. Okay, so let me put something to you here. Okay, let's say that you're looking to start a business and you say, oh, well, I've not got the finances. I just can't do it right now. It's too expensive. Well, what I would then ask you is this a fear or is this a genuine concern? Because if it's a fear, you probably overthought it. You do have the finances, you've got enough money, you just don't know it. Okay, because you haven't reviewed your finances closely enough. You don't know how much it's going to cost. You haven't sat down and actually worked out how much starting a decent business is going to cost you. Okay. Now, if it's a real concern, not just a fear, you will have looked at your bank account and think, okay, well, structurally, that's how much it's going to cost me to build a good business. I don't have that right now. So I'm going to save for another 6 months, then I'm going to do it. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. And that's a great way to do it. Okay. So basically telling whether it's a genuine concern or not, or genuine fear, is essentially, well, let me put it in a better way. Is it a fear or is it a concern? If it's a fear, it's hypothetical, it's non-existent most of the time. And if it's a concern, then it seems to be somewhat real and you're probably right. You're making the right decision. But don't completely shut off the idea. If it's something like starting a business that you want to do, allow yourself the time. Look at your circumstances. If now isn't the right time, okay, because of finances, when is going to be the right time because of finances? Now, whilst there's never a right time specifically to do something, you may be putting yourself in a better position if you saved up for another 6 months so that you can go in with a bigger advertising budget or something along those lines. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. Thank you ever so much for asking. It was fantastic to have the opportunity to answer it. Okay, so let me now just double check if I've got any more questions coming in. I always get one or two. Perfect. Okay, so just the 2 questions from today then. A very, very big thank you for attending once again. I wish you all the very best, and I very much look forward to seeing you again on the next iOB business webinar. All the best and take care. Bye for now.